Here's an example, and then he cut together this piece from Crowder's
Before we get
show.
to the video, with our favorite lispy sprite from Vox. It's ridiculous. It's bonkers. You're being given a free pass as a crappy writer because you're gay.
That center line on his little queer graph there. What is
Well,
that
now
line?
the graph is queer.
Violence, filth.
Okay, so the little queer can eat his chips all nonchalantly. It's code for rape, Mr. Queer eating chips on the Vox channel. Chip, 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 but you can eat just one. Right, this is what Mr. Gay Vox wants to do. Mr. Lispy Queer from Vox. What were you holding, Gay Latino from Vox? His hand movement and fast motion is gay. Now we're here with the short-haired angry lesbian on Skype. And cable news is bitching. Two gay guys sitting there eating a banana. We get the symbolism there. The truth is hiding in a closet 2 weeks later, probably along to his next Pride Parade outfit. This guy on the gay semi-Latino Vox. Oh, okay, so there's an angry little queer. All right, I can't deal with this sprite anymore. Okay, he just sachets across without the gay Vox sprite is wrong. Now he could be a tranny, Your Honor.
I feel like the supercut is way worse than when you watch a 2-hour show of him.
Right. And I think that's kind of where YouTube ended up falling on that side of it. So this comes from Variety.com. It's 3 days ago. It says YouTube says it's reviewing harassment policies after it condoned sustained attacks on gay Latino journalist Carlos Maza. YouTube is under fire for initially taking no action against a right-wing vlogger who has chronically bullied a gay Hispanic video journalist. Said it will take a hard look at our harassment policies with an update to with an aim to update them. The backstory is Carlos Maza is a Vox video producer, said on Twitter post on the 30th that he began working at Vox in early 2017, and videos by conservative YouTuber Steven Crowder responded to his series Strike Through and have consistently included repeated overt attacks on my sexual orientation and ethnicity. Do you think that what he did is a repeated overt attack against his sexual orientation and ethnicity?
I think it's very lowbrow humor and talking shit, yes. But according to that, the article you just read called him a gay Latino. And that's literally how Crowder refers to him.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, super. And plus, this guy's Twitter handle is @gaywonk.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and so I have, what's his name? Carlos, what's his last name?
Maza.
I have a lot of issues with Carlos Maza in general, just because he used to work for Media Matters. He has talked about his entire goal is to take down Fox News. He's called on Twitter for people to go assault people that they disagree with. He's called for him to throw milkshakes at people he disagrees with. So I find it pretty ironic, but also typical that this guy is literally on Twitter calling for people to go out into the world and throw milkshakes, which would be legally assault.
I drink your milkshake. I drink it up.
Throw milkshakes at people, but he can't stand tough words on the internet. I just find it really, really hypocritical.
Yeah, I don't like what Steven Crowder said. I don't like any of it at all. There's the whole thing about like the N-word. I mean, there's a conversation to be had. Can a black person call another black person the N-word? Can a white person call another black person the N-word? And I mean, regardless of where you fall on that, there's like a social etiquette attached to it. There's what's considered okay and what's not. Now, I agree with you in the fact that they refer to him as a gay Latino journalist. He refers to himself as a gay Latino journalist. This guy in itself referring to him as a gay Latino journalist, I wouldn't have an issue with that. It got like, I don't want to see your gay impression in the middle of it. That's where I think it's offensive. It's like to label somebody something is one thing, but all context is lost when you put that in print. But when you're doing the hand motions and saying even his hand motions are gay and all of that, it just crosses over into the line of poor taste. That said, you nailed it when you said, like, if you're a public figure, you got to be open to the fact that people are going to ridicule you. You have to have thicker skin. You have to know that if you choose to take this strong advocacy, that people are going to clap back, and you can't just have a one-sided conversation and the second that somebody contests it, try to shut them down.
Well, especially for the type of person who is like made jokes about straight white males, you can't So here's my thing is I agree with you. I think this is lowbrow. I think it's offensive. I don't particularly like it. I find it very unnecessary. I would never say this in our content.
Right.
But I don't assign myself to identity politics left or right. So if you're going to assign yourself to identity politics where you yourself define yourself clearly as a gay Latino and you make that one of your biggest, proudest things is that you're gay and that you're Latino. And then on the reverse side of that, you also will attack people for being straight white males. How fucking hypocritical and how dare you then get mad when someone is using identity politics back at you? That being said, Crowder says he hates identity politics. And what is he doing here? Identity politicking.
Yeah. And the irony is not lost on me on both sides of that. And I do think it's like, it's just gross, his whole call to arms and to start pointing fingers at YouTube and saying that YouTube is somehow systematically breeding this kind of behavior and that YouTube needs to do something to change the way that basically the way that content's monitored and distributed. And I feel like that's the danger of all of this, is that like YouTube's going to keep on caving just a little bit more and a little bit more, and then it's not going to be a platform for content creators anymore. It's going to be completely run by the institution. Like the beauty, right. And the beauty of YouTube is that it's if a news network puts it onto their network, or if a news network puts a journalist onto their network, then in turn, it becomes a voice or a representation of that network. YouTube is millions of people that have all sorts of different agendas from all sorts of different walks of life, and we as creators are able to post whatever we want onto the platform. YouTube doesn't take a side in this. It was never about this higher institution or this bigger brand. It was always about each of us individuality, being able to share ideas and express ideas. And I don't like hate speech, but at the same time, I don't think that YouTube should do a fucking thing about this guy. Really.
Well, and I agree. And ultimately, Steven Crowder is going to come out fine. This guy's like 3 million subscribers. He's going to be fine. It's going to hurt people like you and me who, we've referenced, even though it was in quotes, let's be queer. Maybe that gets flagged and now we're on a list.
Yep.
And let's also look at the other side of this thing. This is a major person. Vox got like 200 million from, or something like that, 100 million, somewhere 200 million, something ridiculous amount from like NBC.
MSNBC, yeah.
20 million from YouTube, a grant for 20 million. This is a big guy. Whether you like Steven Crowder or not, or where you stand on him as a person, this is a big corporation stamping out an independent creator, because that's what Steven Crowder is. And guess what the ultimate verdict is? He has that "socialism is for figs" shirt that he wears, which is, the joke is it's offensive, and also that it's actually not saying the word. I guess that's a joke. But ultimately, they're like, we'll put you back as long as you take off the t-shirt link in your descriptions. So good job, Vox, for stamping out all these little creators. There's history channels that are gone now because of this. There's independent news people that are gone now because of this. And what's the result? Steven Crowder has to take off a link to his shirt. Way to go, Carlos.
Yeah, really making a difference. And that's just it. He's framed himself as a victim, and it's you've put yourself in the position to be framed that way, so you have to like rise above it. I understand it's a little different when this person has a big following, and I think that's what the fear is. And I do acknowledge that it can be problematic. That's the thing about free speech, is there's the line, it gets hard to see sometimes, and if you allow toxic ideologies to spread like wildfire, and then it can get out of control. There's definitely the fear that the wrong person is going to receive this information, whether we're talking about this woman who stabbed herself because of Trump's America, or we can say somebody else is like, I'm tired of these socialist figs, I'm going to go out and stab somebody. And that's the danger of spreading any sort of really emotion-based ideology. And that's something we don't peddle a lot of here. Neither me or you get like real worked up about shit. And but there is a lot of that. There are a lot of people who respond emotionally to topics, and that's the thing. Is I understand why it is kind of important to monitor it, but I don't think you should intervene unless it gets to a point where it becomes something more.
So my line for all of this stuff is direct calls to action, where I think that crosses a line. So him debating, quote unquote, Steven Crowder debating his ideas, even though in a very, in my opinion, distasteful way of doing it. He doesn't call for action. He doesn't call people to dox him. He's actually been very vocal about how you should never dox people, never assault people. Carlos goes on Twitter and actually calls for action to people go into the real world and throw stuff at people. To me, I look at both of those as much worse. I look at Carlos to me as much worse in that part, you know? And I would stand by this if it were Crowder who was going out and telling people to do things to people in the streets, because that's just unacceptable. But ultimately, I feel like the best way to fight bad ideas, is with good ideas. And part of me wonders if part of the reason this really came to a head right now is Vox is hemorrhaging money. There's employee walkouts and layoffs, and Vox is unless they change their business model, not going to be here forever.
So you're suggesting that this could have been a calculated move to boost ratings?
It's kind of like, well, and then that, and it's also kind of stomping out the competition. Vox has made it very clear they don't like people with different ideology, and they always call for deplatforming. This is nothing new. Vox, Carlos, he calls for deplatforming over and over and over. We've seen major news organizations target people like Phil DeFranco even about trying to get him to deplatformed, and PewDiePie and all these people. And I feel like there's a difference between journalism and activism. And journalism is it bothers me when Carlos refers to himself as a journalist. He's not. Just like I don't think Crowder is either. I think Crowder is, closer to it even being a comedy show, because he will bring a little more ideas, but then that's even a huge stretch to me. I think both of these fall more into the activism or opinion side. The difference for me is why Carlos, to me, falls even farther into the activism side. Because, okay, I'll use this example. Let's say I am a content creator and I'm advocating for healthy living. I say, don't eat sugar because, it's bad for you. That's journalism with an activist tint to it. But if I then go attacking sugar companies, starting boycotts on sugar companies, I've left the realm of journalism and gone fully into activism. And to me, that's where a lot of Vox falls in when they're calling for deplatforming, sending emails, sending tweets. You've crossed the line into activism.
And again, it's a call to action, which by definition is activism. And on the other side of that, there's this idea that like Vox is trying to censor YouTube or make YouTube censor itself. And I think that was the thing about YouTube, is that it should be neutral. It shouldn't be represented by the faces behind it or the creators or anything. It is just a place to share fucking videos. And that's what it's identity politics has embedded itself so deeply into the vernacular when it comes to just the online community as a whole. And I think that's, I hate that. I'm with you on the side of like, calling to deplatform other people to me, it's counter to free speech. It's counter to the idea of journalism in the first place. It's like you can't be a journalist and then say that other people can't report anymore. Now, like you said, it is a stretch to call both of them journalists, but I noticed something just now. What's up with Canadians being all fucking hardcore right-wingers? What is that about? Like, why are they so concerned about American identity politics?
Well, I feel like because a lot of them have moved here, like Crowder lives here now, lived here a long time. And they're from a place that is farther left than us, and they see a lot of problems. Just like, okay, you grew up in a place that was more right-wing, I'm assuming, than I did.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you see a lot more problems in right-wing ideology because you grew up around it. I see a little more problem left because I grew up a little more left. you know, and Canada is very leftist. And a lot of these people moved here and they're like, yay, we're in all these great things. And then now there's this huge push for America to be more like Canada. And they're like, no, I don't want it to be more like Canada. I'm in America so that it's not like Canada. Because yeah, that is a huge thing. There's a big group of conservative voices that are originally from Canada or from the UK.
And I just recently noticed, like I wasn't aware of that until actually what triggered me, me seeing the pattern was first with Tom McDonald, and then it was the girl from what are they called? The Blaze? Is that right? What's her name? The Asian Canadian
roaming millennial. I don't know what her actual I watched her before she was actually on the Blaze.
Like, and she's pretty good. She's pretty good. And you know, I don't
like a logical. I actually really like her content. I feel like she is a lot more polite and logical than someone like Crowder, and she's been on Crowder a ton of times as well. Yeah, for sure. And you know, I'm open to the discussion regardless of what the discussion is. Again, I've never come from a place of being systematically oppressed. I don't know. I don't know what it's like. I can't relate. I don't know what this dude Carlos's life was like. I don't know how, you know, how this conjures up negative things from his past or whatever the situation is. But when it gets to the line of, like you said, calling to action and saying YouTube should make a stance and defend my ideology over anybody else's, that's fucking problematic, because if you do it for one person, what validates one person over another, and then eventually it's all going to be censored. Well, and that's the thing I feel like I see a lot of is calls for censorship with people totally oblivious to the fact that it'll eventually be used on them.
Yeah.
You'll see it with the government. They'll be like, so here's my thing that I always think is funny right now. There's so many people calling for government on the left, specifically right now, calling for government regulation of free speech, okay? While at the same time worried that the government is too big underneath Donald Trump. I'm like, okay, so let's say you win and you get all this government regulation underneath the government. Republicans are in control right now. So who do you really think this is going to affect? These laws. It's going to be, you're literally calling for censorship on yourself at this point. And now privately it's different, but I think that I would rather bad ideas be out there so we can look at them and go, bad ideas. Like Crowder, I actually look at some of his ideas as good. I look at particular his messaging and the crassness of it. I actually think is bad, and I think it is very distasteful. But I also get what he's doing. That's the whole point. He's shock jock. That's kind of what his thing is.
Yeah, a lot of edgelords out there making. I mean, whether it's Red Letter Media making fun of movie reviewers or whatever the thing is, you know, there's always going to be a niche to be filled in this climate, regardless of what sub-genre of YouTube content you make. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I'd like to see where things go. Hopefully, they always go in favor of the creators, and hopefully it always is like a place to be able to do everything from tutorials on how to switch oil in your car to how to play guitar to music videos to people getting kicked in the nuts by horses. Like, whatever you want to upload, that's what you should upload, as long as it's not literally hurting anybody. But at the same time, when, like, you know, that shooter guy is using YouTube as an opportunity to upload, you know, live streams of people you know, so there is a line somewhere. I don't know. I'm not here to ascribe that to YouTube, but it's a conversation worth having. You guys let us know what your thoughts are down in the comments section.